who have nothing to do with material possession, mankind cannot turn its attention to the lotus feet of Krishna. Those lotus feet vanquish all the unwanted, miserable conditions of material life. Purport. This verse appears in the Srimad Bhagavatam 7.5.32. When the great sage Narada was given instructions to Maharaja Yudhishthira, he narrated the activities of Prahlada Maharaja. These verses were spoken by Prahlada Maharaja to his father, Hiranyakashipu, the king of demons. Prahlada Maharaja had informed his father of the 9 basic processes of Bhakti Yoga, explaining that whoever takes of this process is to be considered a highly learned scholar. Hiranyakashipu, however, didn't like his son to talk about devotional service. Therefore, he immediately called Prahlada's teacher, Shanda. The teacher explained that he hadn't taught devotional service to Prahlada, but that the boy was naturally inclined that way. At that time, Hiranyakashipu became very angry and asked Prahlada why he had become a Vaishnava. In answer to this question, Prahlada Maharaja recited this verse to the effect that one cannot become the Lord's devotee without receiving the mercy and blessing of another devotee. Magyana Timarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shrita Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Namam Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhaktivedanta Svaminiti Namine, Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Hare Krishna. Actually, I think we have Bhagavatam as it is. Huh? Yeah, it's already open. 7th canto. Okay, we continue reading Srimad Chaitanya Charitamrta, and I think you should remember whose dialogue is it? Who's this? Okay, and what is the context of this dialogue?
Why is it happening?
I mean, yeah, what are they talking about? You know, just because we took only one verse from the context, so we should understand, at least the context of this dialogue. Why and who is quoted this verse? Who is quoting this verse? Okay. Which options do you have?
So we two options there.
Yeah, and yeah, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, he quoted this verse to whom? Very good. Okay, and why?
Because we're discussing the process of practice, right?
Devotional service, yes.
Like the background.
Okay, the background. Okay, do you remember what we discussed last week? At least some ideas from the
Some the associations, the key elements. Devotional service.
yes, yes. So, I mean, Shri Gauranga Mahaprabhu, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he glorified this process of bhakti. He explained this process of bhakti. And then the question may come, how we can be engaged in bhakti yoga? How we can get this bhakti? Where you can get this bhakti? Shri Gauranga Mahaprabhu, he's quoting these verses, this couple of verses, to prove, to give this understanding where one can get this bhakti. The only way, actually, to get this bhakti. And that is why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he quoted a lot of verses, wonderful verses, glorifying and explaining that the only way to attain this devotional service, pure devotional service, by the mercy of devotees. That's it. Maybe you remember last week we read this wonderful verse as well from 5th canto of Bhagavatam. Rishabhadeva's when Rishabhadeva, he explained to Maharaja Rahugana, similar idea. O King Rahugana, without taking upon one's head the dust from the lotus feet of a pure devotee, a Mahajana or Mahatma, one cannot attain devotional service. Yes, maybe you remember that was the line I asked you, at least remember one line, from the verse. Vina Mahat Padarajobhishekam. And today's verse, Mahiya Sam Padarajobhishekam. Something similar, doesn't it? Yeah? Mahiya Sam Padarajobhishekam. Vina Mahat Padarajobhishekam. But Mahat Padarajobhishekam. And this Mahat Padarajobhishekam, Abhishekam. Yes? Dust or water or something from the lotus feet of devotees. Hare Krishna Lesha. And yes, so dust or water or something, Charitamrta from the lotus feet of pure devotee or devotees. Yes, that's the main point, crucial main point. It's really important to understand. And so we can find that these verses, so Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he not just, okay, what is the context of dialogue? Let's come back for a couple of verses back. When he started to explain this idea. Can't find this verse. So Gauranga Mahaprabhu, he said, by associating with devotee, one awakens his faith in devotional service of Krishna. Sadhu Sangha, Krishna Bhakti, Shraddhaya Dihaya. Because of devotional service, one's dormant love of Krishna awakens, and thus one's material conditions existence comes to an end. So first, Shri Gauranga Mahaprabhu, he quoted, he said something in Bengali, yes, like he said something, and then he wanted to prove this idea. That's why he quoted verses from Holy Scriptures, from Shastra, yes, different ones. He started from Srimad Bhagavatam 11.12.8. Somehow or other, if one is attached to talks about me and has faith in the instructions I have set forth in Bhagavad Gita, and if one is neither falsely detached from material things nor very much attached to material existence, this dormant love for me will be awakened by devotional service. So in the beginning, he quoted verse from Bhagavatam explaining that somehow or other, if one is attached to take talks about me, to talks about me. So to talks means association with devotees, you know. You can talk, I mean, there are only two options, like you either can talk with devotees about Krishna or you can talk about Krishna to non-devotees to make them devotees. You know, no other options. And then, yes, last week verse, Maharaja Rahugana's instruction, Rishabhadeva's instruction to Maharaja Rahugana, and today's verse, Prahlada Maharaj's instruction. So, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu have quoted this, first of all, from Srimad Bhagavatam. Why Srimad Bhagavatam?
Bonafide scripture.
What?
Bonafide scripture.
Bonafide scripture. I mean, you say something and you should give like evidence, proof that what you're saying is true, yes? And what is Srimad Bhagavatam?
Srimad Bhagavatam is basically the description of how devotees attain perfection. Yeah, there's association. Basically, what's in practical sense, how they achieve that perfection.
Yes, very good. But if you're speaking about like all these holy scriptures, Vedic scriptures, because if you say something, you should prove it, like not empty words. No, if you want to discuss something, if you quote, if you say something, if you give any statement, you should prove with a statement from holy scriptures. Yes. So Shri Guru Mahaprabhu, he decided to quote Srimad Bhagavatam in this regard. Verses from Srimad Bhagavatam, we can find it. You know, we already this like the third verse he quoted in this regard. Why he should Srimad Bhagavatam? You know, not some Rig Sama Yajur Tharva Veda, some other Upanishads or Puranas.
Srimad Bhagavatam deals directly with devotional service. It's like directly about the science of devotional service, isn't it? No.
You're giving good answers, but why I want to clarify this point, Dharma prajita kaita vatra paramo nirmat saranam satam. Vedyan vastra matra vasta shivadam tapatra vinmalanam shrimad bhagavate mahamuni kritekim vaparayashvaraha sadhya hridya vadhetetra. Kirti Vriksha Shubhi Stakshana, that's the second verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto. I mean, Srimad Bhagavatam is like a cream, of all this Vedic literature. It's the essence. And sometimes we may forget this, but in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a wonderful story when Shriman Vyasadeva, he said in Badarikashram, he was kind of upset. After creating all this Vedic literature, after not creating, but he divided this one Veda in 4 different lines, Rig, Sama, Yajur, Atharva, and for each of them, he started this Sampradaya, and his disciples, some of his disciples, started different Sampradaya for each of these 4 parts of one Veda, to help people to understand, to remember something, because people in Kali Yuga is struggling to understand one Veda, So that's why he divided it in 4 parts. What else he did? After he explained some kind of historical chronics as well, to give people understanding how better to understand this Veda. So he wrote this Puranas, Upanishads, Itihasas. So, yes. And he even wrote this Mahabharata, 100,000 verses, which is really helpful for people in Kali Yuga. They said that in Kali Yuga, the only way to understand something is to read Mahabharata. Yes. For Shudras, for Stri Shudra, etc. People of Kali Yuga. Because Mahabharata is easier to understand. All these Vedic scriptures, they make it sound like too philosophical for us, too transcendental. And Mahabharata is like stories. People like stories, different stories, They can, wonderful, very huge, this the best book ever created, really the best one. You can't find anything you can compare anything with Mahabharata. And the essence of Mahabharata, Bhagavad Gita is it, Bhagavad Gita, yes. From this 100,000 verses, just 700 verses of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna's words directly. Vedanta Sutra already was created. The essence of Vedas, like Vedanta Sutra, very short, Janmadhyasya Yadaha. What can you understand from this line? This is Vedanta Sutra. This is the first beginning of Vedanta Sutra. One verse, Janmadhyasya Yadaha. With our brain, what we can understand with this? I mean, really, not so much. But yes. And Vyasadeva, he said, unsatisfied. And he got good motivation to do so. I mean, his motivation was to help people. Unconditional service to people. This is actually nature of the soul, to serve. He didn't do this to become famous, to get any kind of respect or something like that. No. His motivation was to serve. And even though he wanted to serve, and he served actually people, by doing all this great job, job of his life, like his life project, he wasn't satisfied. Why?
Didn't explain the devotional service. The process of. We're talking about different things, but they just didn't explain the.
Devotional service, right? So it's Srimad Bhagavatam, right? Which deals with these things.
He didn't explain devotional service, but he already composed like Bhagavad Gita, yes? Bhagavad Gita was already there. So Mahabharata, Bhagavad Gita. Can you find some explanation of devotional service in Bhagavad Gita? Alan, Prabhu, your thoughts?
Yeah, he was unsatisfied because the most important things are subjects related to Krishna, and so he felt like this was missing. That it was explained to him. That's why he felt that way from Narada, I think it was. So when he wrote the Bhagavatam, that was to balance out the this other stuff in the Vedas, so more subject related directly to Krishna.
So that's why he wasn't satisfied, yes, and he got this idea. Maybe I did something wrong, and maybe because I didn't explain this, not explain, he already explained, something is in Padma Purana or, in Bhagavad Gita, is it, obviously something was there. But the problem is, can you imagine 100,000 verses from Mahabharata, only 700 verses of Bhagavad Gita? It's quite difficult to find. 0.7%, from the whole Mahabharata explain Krishna as it is, his words, yes, quoted. So he wasn't satisfied because it was indirect preaching, like bridge preaching. And people, they already have this inclination to be, to stay in this material world and suffering, pretend that they enjoy it. So Narada Muni, he appeared and he asked Srila Vyasadeva, Are you happy by associating yourself with your body and your mind? As a spiritual master, yeah, he instructs Srila Vyasadeva. Actually, Srila Vyasadeva, Krishna himself, I mean, this usually, that's unusual things, but yeah, Narada Muni, he instructed him. And he asked him a question. If you composing all this literature, you're unsatisfied. How can people who go to study this literature will be satisfied? Is it possible? No? Not at all. That's why you should, put Krishna in the center, where he's supposed to be. And this is Srimad Bhagavatam. Only Krishna and his devotees. Pure devotional service. Krishna in relationship with devotees, his relationship with devotees. And that's why, this Srimad Bhagavatam is so sacred. And when Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu, he quoted verses from Bhagavatam, that means much, that means a lot. It's for sure, this is like main central point. You should take it, you should understand this. Please understand this, You cannot attain devotional service without association with devotees, without taking dust of lotus feet of devotee on your head. And he proved it by quoting different verses as we found it. Maybe, you may say, okay, it is said just once, maybe that's wrong. No, that's why Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu, he quoted different verses from different parts of Bhagavatam, different stories. And this line, Mahiya Sampada Rajobhishetam, again. Today's verse is really wonderful as well, because you remember this story from 7th canto of Bhagavatam? Actually, this particular story, which is on the front page, how you call this? Hiranyakashipu, Prahlada Maharaj, he sat on his lap, and what is the best? You started from your teachers, and Shravanam Kirtana Vishnu Smaranam Padasevadam Archanam Vandanam Dasyam Sakhyam Atmani Vedanam. What? How dare you? And then you Shanda, as Prabhupada wrote today, yes. He called it Shanda, how dare you teach my son this nonsense about devotional service to Vishnu, my enemy? I didn't teach him anything. That's his natural inclination. Then he asked Prahlada Maharaja, why are you talking like this? I mean, why did you know this? And Sri Prahlada Maharaj, he actually replied in 3 verses, one of the most famous verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, really wonderful verses. And this is the 3rd one we read today. And these verses, first, Prahlada Maharaja, he said, like, my dear father, it's impossible. You won't understand. Even if I tell you, you won't understand this. It was the first verse, yeah? I just want to find them. 5:30. Okay, very quickly. 7:5:30. Let's read at least the verse. Matirna Krishna Parato Svatova Mithobhipadita Griha Vratanam Adanda Gopir Vishatam Tamisram Punach Punash Charvita Charvananam. You know this verse, yeah? Punach Punash, again and again, Charvita Charvananam. Chewing the tooth, yes. Prahlada Maharaj replied, because of their uncontrolled senses, person too addicted to material life make progress toward hellish condition and repeatedly chew that which has already been chewed. Their inclination toward Krishna are never aroused either by instructions of others, by their own efforts, or by combination of both. So first verse, main idea of the first verse, my dear father, you won't understand because you're too attached to this material enjoyment. And people who who get this too strong attachment for this material enjoyment, they won't ever understand anything about devotional service. So whatever I tell you, you won't understand this. That was the first verse, This First part of his reply. Wonderful purport by Prabhupada, but we don't have time to read it anyway. Nate viduk svarthagatim he Vishnum durasya ye bahirartha manina andha yathandhar upaniyamanas tepeshatantriam urudamni badha. Persons who are strongly entrapped by the consciousness of enjoying material life and who have therefore accept as their leader or guru a similar blind man attached to external sense objects cannot understand that the goal of life is to return home back to Godhead and engage in the service of Lord Vishnu. As blind man guided by another blind man missed the right path and fell into a ditch, material attached man, led by another material attached man, are bound by the ropes of fruitive labor, which are made of very strong cords, and they continue again and again in material life, materialistic life, suffering, and their fault miseries. Again, like next verse, Prahlada Maharaja. First, you won't understand, you never understand this because you're too attached to this material life. No, and Natevi Duksvartha Gatim Shri Vishnu. Yes, you follow these blind people who, like one blind person lead another blind person. That's it. And then, like he finished with this positive verse. So that two was like kind of negative verses, like neti, you know, neither this nor that, you know, can give you this understanding, as we read last week as well, you know, known any austerities, standing in the cold water in winter, or surrounded by fire and sun, you know, nothing can give you pure devotional service, only Padaraja Abhishekam. So Prahlada Maharaj is similar, you know, he quoted first, what cannot give you this devotional service first? This cannot give you this devotional service, that cannot give you, actually stop you from devotional service. And the only one thing is the main point, which can give you today's verse. Today's wonderful verse. Naisham matis tavadruk ramankrim. Sprashatyananta pagamo anartha pagamo yadan arthach mahyasham padarajabhishekam nishkinchananam navrinita yavat. Unless human society accept the dust of lotus feet, it's very interesting because Prabhupada, in this translation, he mentioned human society, not just one person, but human society in general, because this is right as well. Devotee who have nothing to do with material position, mankind cannot turn its attention to the lotus feet of Krishna. Those lotus feet vanquish all the unwanted, miserable condition of materialistic life. Okay, I have to finish now. Do you have any comments?
Thank you for your question, Ruth. So I think yesterday, last week, we were discussing also what does it mean to take the dust of the lotus feet of these great Mahatmas on the head. This could be also just following completely surrendering and following the instructions of these personalities. That's one of the things as well, right? Surrendering our lives and just following their instructions. Is that correct?
As I mentioned last week, both are correct. You know, I mean, the main idea is humility. Trinadapi sunichana tarore vasahishtana amanena manadena kirtaniya sadahari. Kirtaniya sadahari. If you want to, kirtaniya sadahari. Always chant Krishna's holy names. Kirtaniya sadahari. If you want always to get this opportunity to glorify the Lord, you should become Trinada Pisnanchina, Trina, grasp, yeah. Trinada Pisnanchina, Tarore Vasahishtana, Taror, tree, Tarore Vasahishtana, Amanina Manadena, showing respect for everyone, actually not just for pure devotee, which is easier part to do, you know. Because first, we start it's really difficult for our ego to accept someone who is senior than me. Really difficult, extremely difficult. We may pretend, but really accept someone, it's quite difficult. It might feel quite difficult. Scottish people, they want freedom. They don't want to obey for anyone. Not only Scottish people, Ukrainian people as well, Latvian, Lithuanian, any nation, freedom.
Indian.
Huh?
Indian.
Yeah. So that's the point. And to accept someone senior than you, for your sake, always difficult. But first, it's okay, accept at least one person who is senior than you. At least one, your spiritual master. And then, by practicing this, you will accept other people. You will find that really they're senior than me in something. Maybe not in everything, but in something, yes. As we find in Srimad Bhagavatam as well, this wonderful story when a disciple can read from this, like 24 gurus explained in Srimad Bhagavatam, yes, like different ones. So you can learn something from anywhere, from anyone and anything. It's wonderful, So, but first, accept one guru. If you accept one guru, your false ego, gradually, step by step, yes. And then, amanana manadana. Okay, to show respect for everyone, easy part. It's easier part. The most difficult part is manadana. Don't accept any respect to yourself. You should stop waiting for this. Can you imagine this? It's really difficult. No, if I show my respect to everyone else, they should show their respect to me back. Yes? If not, that's it. He's not devotee. He's a demon, actually. That's the most difficult part, yes. But that's what Shiguranga Mahaprabhu, he gave to us. And yes. But step by step, First, spiritual master, then senior devotees, then devotees, then maybe non-devotees. And you just want to finish my thought of this one, because it's difficult, you cannot imitate this, but if you start, that's why we study. Like in the society of devotees, we can learn how to show respect at least for devotees by reading all this, wonderful literatures. One may ask, who is devotee? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu here explained who is a devotee by in thoughts of Shiguranga Mahaprabhu. Anyone who just once chanted Krishna's holy names, even once, you should treat this person as a devotee. It's a high standard, real, high one. But okay, at least senior devotees. You might understand, okay, if this person has been chanting Hare Krishna mantra for the last 40 years, 30 years, 20 years, maybe there is something, maybe he knows something, yes. Maybe I can try to follow him. It's some kind of character which inspired us. We accept him as a senior. Then we can understand, okay, these other people, they also devotees. They try their best. They chant mantra every day. They struggle and they fight for their spiritual life. Then maybe someday we will accept people in common, in general, that they devote as well. At least, they get this human form of life. Srila Prabhupada, he treat with respect, even homeless people, even, these hippies. Why? I mean, they didn't get any qualification. They didn't have any qualification, but Srila Prabhupada treated them with respect. Why? Because from all these billions and trillions, of living beings, this one, they get this human form of body. And they have Paramatma in their heart. At least for this we can respect people. At least for this. It's really rare. Really rare souls get human form of body. Can you imagine how many? Like we have 3 human form of body in this room now. How many insects or microbes? So Ralph, we wanted to say something.
I just wanted to add to the wonderful things that you were saying, Prabhu, because I was so inspired. It was, not just the humans of all different categories, but every life form surely deserves respect. And another thing as well was, if we're around someone, even if they have the dress of a devotee, if their behaviour is not becoming, that respect might manifest in a way that might seem contrary to people's expectations. Because should we tolerate behaviour that is offensive in our community, even if that person is, dressed like a devotee?
And that's a question of Vaishnava's etiquette. Sometimes, not sometimes, always, it's the most safest position is to be under. When you have senior devotees, if you're a manager, for example, and in your department, someone misbehave. Okay, that's your service to correct this person with love, with all this, respect. Not just by arguing him, but trying to explain your best. As a servant, you can correct this person. If you're a spiritual master of this person, you can correct this person, obviously. You may try your best to correct someone else, but if you're not, okay, what to do? That's not my service to correct this. If you have a relationship with a person, if you're quite close, if you really have relationships, some trust, between you, and you understand that this person maybe he will take something from me, If I say this, he won't argue, but he will accept, maybe. And I can try to do my best to say something, But again, proper etiquette is quite easy, There are some devotees who are responsible for this, as a managers or as a senior devotees, and okay, they should correct this person, not me. If I have a really problem, if I really struggle, I can come to the senior devotee and ask him, how should I act in this situation? This devotee, he's misbehaved. It's driving me mad because I don't know. Maybe that's wrong. Well, what should I do? Could you please maybe correct him or correct me? Maybe I'm wrong. No, that's proper position to deal with this. It's not easy. I know. I know, but this is proper etiquette. Krishna Chaitanya Charitamrta ki jai, Shloka Bhagavad Pavan ki jai. Tagore Premanande.
Jai Krishna Kishore ki
Prabhupada ki jai.